You can sense Herod DNA everywhere. This is part of his legacy. I build, therefore I am.
2,000 years later, the most influential person on the construction of this land was a Jewish Roman dictator king of this country.
That was a demonstration that the Lord of the Jews is an entity that you cannot ignore.
Construction and development have always been part of our story in this land. So much so that today we jokingly say that the national bird of Israel is the crane. In history, we have these leaders, the people that with vision and foresight changed the way this land looks. And we're starting with one of the most controversial characters, Herod the Great, a man who is known for many negative events, but in the first century was known to be the man who changed the landscape of Israel. Many of the sites iconically known as Israel today are his legacy in this land, and their mark is visible more than 2,000 years later. We're heading into Jerusalem to the site known as the Southern Steps, the steps leading up to the Temple Mount. And we're about to meet with Guy Stiebel, who's a well-known archaeologist who specializes in Herod the Great. Almost every Second Temple site that we know, including the Southern Steps, was built by Herod the Great. Hey, Guy. It's good to see you.
Same here. Shall we?
Let's.
This line of stone, it's Herod's time, and it's still here. It starts from here. And just imagine one stone all the way to here. So you speak about what? 12 meters, something like that.
It's a big stone.
It's quite a schlep.
We're talking about Herod the Great. He's a regional king.
Yes.
One who comes to power in a very clever way. And then he utilizes this to start building.
From the very beginning, he invested in infrastructure. And infrastructure can be his own palace, but it can be a road, and it can be a temple, and it can be a harbor. And the unbelievable thing is that he did it all.
Was he madman or genius statesman, or,
Can I say D? All of the above.
Herod the Great was appointed by the Roman Empire as king of Judea from 37 BCE to 4 BCE. Born on this land, he was considered Jewish by the rabbinic law of the time. As a ruler, he was terrifyingly wicked, but also innovative and prosperous. Herod made his presence known by building and developing ancient Israel and shaping it into so much of what we see and know today.
There is a joy as an archaeologist to follow his footsteps, which you can do till this very day. The fact that we still speak about him 2,000 years following his death, I think, speaks for itself.
Because it's impossible to forget. Even if you didn't know about him, you wouldn't be able to travel through this land without seeing multiple structures built by him.
We start from the north, on what we call Panias, a magnificent temple that he built. Let's go to the west, to the sea, Caesarea. For the first time, the entire city is sort of an alternative capital to Jerusalem. So you have the harbor. 120 ships could dock there. Today, the biggest harbor in Israel can serve 25 ships. It's unbelievable. Then we go to Samaria, Sebastos, a very impressive city till this very day. We move, of course, to Jerusalem, where we stand right now. Jerusalem became the large city, the most magnificent city, as a Roman described it during his time and his reign. And we have Jericho with 3 palaces, magnificent. Then you can cross the Dead Sea to Masada, which is known all over the world as an icon. It's a World Heritage Site. And all that was done in less than 4 decades, which is amazing.
How did he have the financial means to build so much?
He's the biggest political juggler in this part of land. He was controlling the outlet of 2 roads. The one who brought all the goods from the south, from Yemen and this area. The other one was south of Syria. So he was controlling the main international routes, and that was money. Very typical to this part of land, it was a political chaos. He had to face the Romans, he had to face the Parthians. Cleopatra was there as well. And he managed to juggle between all of them. But on the other hand, he was quoted to say that one would be better off being the pig of Herod rather than one of his sons, because He was not the father of the year, nor was he the husband of the year. That tells you much about him. Nevertheless, life were quite pleasant. Economy was quite impressive. Back then, there were 2 years with no rain whatsoever, and the entire infrastructure was about to collapse. But he managed to bring barley and wheat from Egypt, spread it all over, offered for elderly people, the open bakeries, and he even exported to Syria. That was a statement. I give something for the people. I don't like looking at a person in terms of black and white.
Yeah.
As in archaeology, we excavate in layers. You can look at the human spirit in the very same way.
We often hear about Herod in the sense of the Bible, or specifically the New Testament.
Yes.
What is his story there?
I think history in that respect loves the villains.
It is believed that King Herod feared the proclaimed Messiah. In the Gospel of Matthew, Herod orders the execution of all male children 2 years and under from the area of Bethlehem. In Jewish tradition, he's considered a Roman foreigner, unworthy of his kingship over Judea. Herod was not a loved king.
When we look at him through the archaeology, it's a wonderful way to tell who the person was, where he lived, what he feared from, the numbers of the fort. So you see that he was very cautious, sometimes ultra cautious.
Paranoid is the word I would use.
I disagree. I think you should actually look it through his eyes, because he had many threats.
And many enemies.
Yes. The fact that he manifested that in the construction, and very wisely he built for everyone. For them, if you haven't seen the house of Herod, which was not his private palace, it's a temple.
Yeah.
You haven't seen a magnificent building in your life. Not only that, he left behind the most important places. We still speak about the Temple Mount to this very day. We're standing on the stairs that led pilgrimage that came from all over the world to here. That's part of his legacy.
So these are the southern steps. What is so special about them? What happens here?
Nearly the end of a long marching that started in a small village in Syria or in Turkey or in Italy.
Jewish pilgrims coming from around the world?
3 times a year, you visit the Temple Mount. So this is the center, the beating heart of the Jewish nation till this very day.
There's a pool down there. They would bathe and march all the way up to the temple.
Indeed. You will also bring money because you have to change it to donate. This is, by the way, the location where Jesus Christ, when he wanted to protest, this was a place he was
where he
doing
flipped the
it.
tables.
Exactly.
Of the money changers.
Money changer. It was done just above our head in the Royal Basilica, which was up here. Basically, whether you thought he was a hero or actually the villain, at the end of the day, he created the arena that we call Jerusalem, that we call the Holy Land. He was the one. He understood that you can destroy his tomb, but the Temple Mount still stands with the earthquakes and the destruction of the Roman. This is part of his legacy. I build, therefore I am, if you wish.
Welcome back. Mati, when we talk about the rebuilding of the State of Israel, we're sitting overlooking the beautiful city of Jerusalem, a city that was destroyed 7 times. And now we see the miracle of rebuilding the State of Israel. Just look around you.
Yeah, I mean, I love how practical God's word is in this land. When we read in the Bible about Herod the Great, you're just behind us. You can see a lot of what he built in this city.
So where are we going from there?
Even today, there are people hard at work building this country. We have the Golan Heights, and we have the Negev, and we have a very quickly, rapidly growing population, and we need to create solutions for those people. So we're tracking the story of those new communities.
Beautiful. So let's continue watching the miracle of rebuilding the land.
70 years after Herod the Great dies, the Romans destroy the beautiful temple that he completed, and for 2,000 years, the Jewish people are scattered to the 4 corners of the earth. But since we've came back to this land, we've been building, and we've been building fast. So much so that anywhere you look around this country, you'll see new construction projects, and it's estimated that by 2065, Israel will be the 2nd most populated country on the face of the earth. So where are we gonna live? Well, there are some really creative people working on the solution to that question. The land of Israel is unique in the sense that the majority of the population lives in this tiny part of the land, namely on the coast. But most of the available land is in northern Israel, the Galilee and the Golan, and in southern Israel, in the Negev. And we're heading down south to meet with Roni Flamer, who's one of the founders of the oil movement, who are building new communities in this land in the same way the founders of this nation did more than 100 years ago. Roni, good to see you.
Good to see you.
So this is your beautiful new community.
Yeah.
It's much bigger than I expected. Explain to us what the organization does.
We are building new towns. We are expanding the existing towns, bringing people, jobs, culture, and to create communities to make sure that the land and the people of Israel will stay here forever. We became experts in infrastructure, in impact investment, dealing with the government, but this is not the most important thing. It's the people that are coming, and we see it. The families are following, the friends are following, we are growing and growing, and thank God we see a huge blessing in what we do.
But the road to achieving these goals has been paved with many personal sacrifices.
It is very complicated to establish a new town in Israel. You say, okay, guys, we need to populate the Negev, we need to establish a new town, and then bureaucracy is starting. The why and the how, then the Green Party is coming, and the Bedouins are coming, and everybody's coming, and everybody has something to say.
We are standing right outside of Karmit, which has been 8 years of sweat, blood, and tears in the making.
They told us, if you believe that you can bring 500 families, so do it by yourself. Build in advance all the infrastructures, and that's what we did. We took the land, and with a leap of faith, we mortgaged our own houses. We started with a loan, tons of money, tons of bureaucracy, tons of governmental decisions. If it was only about building the new towns, you can get frustrated from that. But the point is the journey. The point is the spirit. And that's how you change the concept and build the new model of the Holy Land.
The establishment of new cities and small towns in Israel almost came to a complete halt around the mid-1990s. But the country kept growing. Taller buildings replaced old ones, and new neighborhoods began to pop up on the crowded outskirts of existing towns. The majority of Israel's population remained in the country's developed centers, which makes up to 20% of the land. The remaining 80% of the land, consisting mostly of the northern and southern districts, are far less populated and are home to much of Israel's Arab and Bedouin minorities.
The vision and the goal is to bring 4 million people to live in the Negev and the Galilee. Otherwise, we are going to lose it. We are going to lose Israel. As you can see here, Karmit is located between two Bedouin cities. And there, one leg is with Israel. We live with you, we are friends, we are neighbors. On the other hand, we are just across the border from the West Bank. And they want us to see who is going to win. Our role in our generation is to make sure that we are going to win. This fight is not to fight the darkness. We are adding light. The way you add light, you put the facts on the ground, you build, you believe.
The vision of the oil movement is finally a reality. Today, more than 50,000 people live in their new and renewed communities in the Negev and the Galilee, thriving due to the economic impact of more than $3 billion of infrastructure and government investment.
Again and again, with a tear in my eyes, every time I see a family entering new home in the Negev or the Galilee, this is the moment that I see that things are coming true and that it was worth everything.
Shalom from Jerusalem. Today we have a great honor having one of the most known historian when it comes to the kibbutz life in Israel, Mr. Muki Tsur. Muki, a great honor having you. So first of all, we as Israeli, we assume that everybody knows what a kibbutz is. The kibbutz movement was a factor in the beginning of the 20th century, even before the establishment of the State of Israel. There were kibbutzim in Israel.
They were the beginning of the Jewish sovereignty in the country. The first kibbutz was created in 1910.
Wow.
It was created by 12 people. It was part of the dream of Jewish youth that we are not coming to Israel only to live, but to create something that will have meaning to humanity, a cooperative life and a community life. Everybody participant in all the decisions, dealing with the historical challenges of the Jewish revival.
The kibbutz was a tool to help immigration, to take people who are coming down from the boats. You need to
The
build
kibbutz
agriculture, you need to build factories, you need to build a state. And the kibbutz was a huge tool.
Groups of young people, very young people, built 52 kibbutzim at the time. When the knowledge of the assassination of the Jewish people arrived here,
To the land, yeah.
it was a very dramatic time for these communities that their parents were in big disaster. How not to be paralyzed by it? How to be able to rebuild after this kind of thing and to build an economy that can have all this immigration. The kibbutz could absorb them and educate and giving them some kind of a target.
Wow. Let's talk about yourself a bit.
I was born in Jerusalem in 1938. At the age of 11, I decided that when I will grow up, I will go to a kibbutz. I fulfilled it in the age of 18, and since then, we are there from 1956. Today, 190,000 people living in kibbutzim. It's 40% of Israeli agriculture
Wow.
and 8% of Israeli industry.
It's huge.
But this means to be challenges, how to challenge modernity on the one hand and to receive modernity on the other hand.
Not only that, I think that at that time, the young people who came to the kibbutz had the purpose to build a country.
Right.
And it was a common uniting factor. Today, the country is established.
But you know that Israel now, in the third generation of Israelis, it's now the beginning of the creation of Israeli society, is to ask yourself how to build it, how to build this community, Arabs, Jews, people who came from Europe, people who came from America, people who came from Africa. And in this challenge, the values and the question, how to create a community. We are only in the beginning.
Beautiful. What a great honor having you. As one of the builders of the State of Israel, thank you very much for being on our show. And to you, our friends, once again, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Thank you, and a warm shalom from Jerusalem.
Arie, good to see you.
I went to meet Arie Bar David, one of the first founders of a very unique village established in 1971.
One of my daughter is living here, another here, nephews here, here, and this is my home.
Yad HaShmona is a Messianic village set in the Judean hills just outside of Jerusalem.
What is common for us is our faith. We are all believing that Yeshua is the living Son of our Father in heaven.
Today we look at the followers of Christ in Israel. It seems natural that this is the way things are, and they probably always have been this way. How different things were when you grew up.
We were the only family in Israel, and all our childhood, we got stones and curses.
Yeah.
If we were put a window,
Someone throws a rock through.
minutes.
Many of the early immigrants to the state of Israel had fled Jewish persecution in Europe, which had culminated in the Holocaust of World War II. Unfortunately, at the time, there was a fearful and untrusting attitude towards Christianity and the followers of Christ. Nevertheless, Arie and his family, all Jewish followers of Christ, were determined to build a future here.
Jesus said, who will inherit the kingdom of heaven? Those who will stand in the suffering. They were no believers, so the brothers, we always were talking that one day we would like to do something together.
Then you find this place called Yad HaShmona.
Now, I thought that I know the land of Israel, right? I never heard a place like this. There are only 8 people there. One man and his wife and 5 women. There was nothing here, nothing.
In the early 1970s, Arie and his brothers discovered this unique Christian Finnish community who had moved here for a very special reason.
What happened during Second World War? All already in 1934-5, Hitler, he decided to evacuate Germany from Jews. And some Jews left to Finland. 7 years later, during Second World War, Hitler demanded them back.
Yeah, and it wasn't to throw a party for them, it was to kill them.
He wanted to kill them, of course.
The Finnish prime minister at the time refused, despite Germany's threats of war.
The interior minister of Finland, secretly, he made a deal with the Germans. They will bring the Jews, telling them that they are brought to England. They started getting up on the ship. Suddenly, the accent of the sailor was too German.
Too German.
There was a war on the ship, and the ship left with 8 Jewish people to Germany, to Auschwitz, to the death camps. Now, for the Finnish people, they could not accept it. We have to do something to memorize them. And this is why this is called Yad HaShmona, Memory of the Eight.
Memory of the Eight, yeah.
I toured the village with Arie to get a glimpse of where the story began and how far things have come.
So this, Arie, this is one of the last of the original buildings that's still standing.
It was built for a few months because this will be replaced.
Yeah, that's been how long?
40, almost 48 years.
Not very characteristic building for Israel.
You know, the first block or wood house in Israel. We are passing through the wine press. From the first day, it started coming in our hearts that one day we would like to have a biblical garden. We have here all the 7 biblical trees that appears in the Bible.
Today, Yad HaShmona is a one-of-a-kind home to over 60 believing families and part of a larger community of Jewish followers of Christ that is growing in this country.
All there was a couple small wooden houses sort of behind those houses there.
Yeah.
Then you built out this street, the street behind it,
Yeah.
the hilltop, and then all of that hill over there. How does it feel for you when you see how much this place is growing?
I'm glad. It's going to be even much, much more. One day when we will look at the moment that we were standing and we saw little Yad HaShmona, then we'll understand, because this is God's promise.
Hey, I'm Mati Shoshani, and thank you for watching the TBN Israel YouTube channel. We hope this video gave you greater understanding of Israel and her people. If you haven't already, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. We'd love to hear from you, so be sure to share what you've learned and ask your questions in comments below. And invite your friends to join the conversation.